Welcome to this explainer on the invisible concession, specifically builder rate buydowns. Now check this out. On August 12, 2026, home builder mortgage affiliates were writing 30-year loans at 5.23% on a weighted average.
Meanwhile, everybody else, the entire open market, was sitting at 6.6%. That right there is a massive structural distortion in the housing market. To put that into perspective, on a $500,000 loan, that gap is about $439 every single month. It's a fundamental shift in purchasing power that builders use to protect the sticker price of their standing inventory.
But here's the crazy part. None of that $439 monthly savings appears anywhere on the closing disclosure. Why? Because the builder bought that money before any buyer even signed a contract. That is exactly why it sits completely outside the seller contribution cap. The recorded sale price is simply the full price. And fast forward to 2029, that full, unadjusted price is the exact comparable sitting right there on your seller's street.
Let's move into Section 1, Forward Commitments and the Invisible Paper Trail.
So let's look under the hood. How exactly do builders achieve this kind of financing magic without it ever showing up as a traditional seller concession? Well, the engine driving this whole thing is called a forward commitment. Basically, a forward commitment is a strategy where a builder's mortgage arm pays points up front to secure a giant block of below-market money, and then they originate loans against it. They're essentially buying discounted money in bulk long before any specific buyer even walks into the model home. And because the builder paid that cost up front, it completely bypasses the standard seller contribution cap. It never ever appears as a seller concession on the individual buyer's closing disclosure. There's literally no trace left behind for future appraisers to find. It's a perfectly legal, structurally invisible concession. It protects the builder's top-line price while delivering this massive unrecorded subsidy directly to the buyer.
And the sheer scale of this, it's absolutely staggering. We're not talking about some fringe tactic here. As of June 2025, roughly 64% of new homes sold by the largest builders utilized a permanent buydown. Smaller builders were at about 13%. So this is a dominant strategy in the marketplace, and it's fundamentally altering the baseline of what a recorded sale actually means in new construction.
All right, Section 2, the daybreak closeout scenario.
Let's ground this in reality for a second. If you look at high-inventory new construction markets, say a closeout phase in Daybreak where the median hit over $563,000, or maybe near Lehigh where Toll Brothers lists homes upwards of $1.12 million. When you're analyzing these neighborhoods, you might logically wonder, okay, does this massive builder rate buydown show up anywhere on the buyer's closing docs to help an appraiser evaluate the true market value? The answer is a flat no. The methodology problem isn't just that closeout comparables are discounted, it's that they aren't discounted on paper at all.
Think about a closeout situation. A buyer taking a $500,000 loan at that builder index rate of 5.23% is paying about $2,755 a month. If they had to finance elsewhere at the normal 6.6% rate, they'd be paying $3,194. That buyer is getting incredible economic value. Yet when you look up the recorded sale price in the county database, it just reflects the absolute full unsubsidized value of the property.
This is exactly why early documentation is so critical. Because the public system doesn't record this rate subsidy, the buyer's agent in 2026 is literally the only person who will ever see that builder's incentive sheet. Capturing those true economic realities right at the time of purchase is the absolute only reason a listing agent years down the road will be able to explain why that property isn't what it appears to be on the public record.
Moving on to Section 3, running the threshold arithmetic.
So if the public record is completely blind to this, how on earth do we mathematically adjust for a concession that isn't officially there? Well, we run what's called the threshold arithmetic. Based on hard market data, we know that roughly 4% of the loan amount is spent by the builder for every single point of rate reduction. That means a 1-point buydown on a $500,000 loan hides a $20,000 invisible concession. That $20,000 is real economic value transfer to the buyer that just vanished from the official sales price. And when you look at the averages, it gets even crazier. With average buydown discounts sitting at about 1.3 percentage points, builders are secretly spending roughly 5% of the mortgage amount. Throw in a few other incentives, and the total builder spend can easily reach 6.5% to 12% or more of the sales price. And they do this all just to protect those standing inventory sticker prices.
So here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. To get an accurate comparable, you have to subtract that estimated concession from the recorded price. You simply cannot take the county record at face value anymore. Your analysis has to weight the adjusted number, and any professional report you put together must explicitly explain why that lower figure was used to reflect the true market reality.
Which brings us to Section 4, the resale, 2 years later.
Let's fast forward a bit. What happens when that 2026 closeout buyer decides they want to sell their home in, say, 2028? Well, this structural invisibility we've been talking about is exactly why sellers sit at their kitchen table 2 years later and ask, why is my home appraising for less than what my neighbor's house sold for on paper? They're looking at the unadjusted records, seeing those high numbers, and just naturally assuming their home has the exact same value.
But they're falling into a timeline trap. A home bought in August 2026 with a massive forward commitment financing subsidy becomes a wildly distorted comparable in 2028. Why? Because that original subsidy is completely unrecoverable for the new buyer. The builder bought that cheap money back in 2026. A standard resale buyer in 2028 simply cannot access those same subsidized terms.
The recorded sale from 2026 is perfectly legal, it's real, and it's arm's length. Nobody did anything wrong, we want to be clear about that. But because it carries a financing subsidy the current buyer can't get, the comparable is mathematically wrong for a standard resale. If you don't document or weight down that invisible incentive package, relying on that comp is going to lead to fundamentally flawed pricing, precisely because that package is usually unrecoverable.
Finally, Section 5, setting comps aside systematically.
So how do real estate professionals actually document this structural distortion in a way that survives scrutiny at that kitchen table? It requires systematic documentation. Using CMA Flow's CMA generator, professionals can build a report that formally sets a distorted comparable aside, and you can state exactly why right there on the page. You back it up with the initial agent's captured terms to clearly identify the forward commitment that inflated the original recorded price.
Ultimately, documenting the forward commitment through proper, rigorous analysis gives you the undeniable proof you need to price accurately. The recommended price becomes a logical conclusion drawn from the data, leaving the seller with a confident, well-backed strategy rather than just asking them to blindly trust a lower number. So I'll leave you with this question. If up to 12% of a home's value is hiding off the record, are you truly pricing the home? Or are you just pricing the builder's invisible money?